Today's session is on the perfect action. Have you ever seen perhaps a flock of birds in flight? Or you've listened to a beautiful poem and felt inspired? When you see perhaps a gazelle moving through the fields, an elephant taking care of its baby, there's something graceful, there's something majestic in it, an eagle soaring. So take that inspiration that we sometimes experience, that sometimes we see. Perhaps it's a sports person, the way they approach a game, an artist, the way they handle the strokes of a brush. So take that inspiration that you experience when you see that. When somebody does something expertly, when you see nature performing a natural act beautifully, gracefully. Now bring that inspiration into our action. Why can't our work, our action, be that graceful, that inspirational? Like an eagle soaring, like a beautiful oak tree swaying. Why can't we have that inspiration in and through what we do? And this is the kind of perfect action that we want to aspire for. So we know what is an imperfect action, or do we? What is an imperfect action, anyone?
Something that is selfish.
Selfish, okay.
Any action that agitates you.
Agitation, great. So an action that we find agitating, stressful, anything else?
Perhaps tedious. If we find an action tedious, we have to examine it.
Tedious, right, great. So you're not looking forward to the action. So remember this picture of the soaring eagle? And then you've got tediousness, it doesn't fit. Girish, you said something?
I said egocentric.
Egocentric. So let's identify what is imperfect about the action, right? So egocentric is the cause. So first we're looking at the symptoms, because we can go from the symptoms and then work towards the cause. So the symptoms of an imperfect action is lack of efficiency, agitated. It doesn't lead to success. So there's no peace, there's no efficiency, there's no success. What does a perfect action look like? It looks effortless. It looks like the person is in a different realm when they're performing it, as if it is natural because it is. But to get to that state of it being so natural without effort takes a great deal of thought. It takes a great deal of technique. Some of you have told me directly, you say, when I read Swamiji's books, it's so clear. The way it's written, such a difficult concept, so well explained. For something to be read, and this is a quote by a Spanish author named Ponchela, he says, when anything can be read without great difficulty, right? So if something's easy to read, it means great effort has gone into its writing. When anything can be read without great difficulty, great effort has gone into its writing. Means there has been great thought to come up with that thought flow to present it so easily. Similarly, if you see a person wearing their action, their work with such ease, with such dispassion and gracefulness, there's a technique behind it. And this is the perfect action that we're aspiring for. If we don't have that effortlessness, if we don't have that efficiency, it means we have an opportunity to refine, improve the quality of our action. At the moment, we look at work, action as just something to make a living. And the cost of that is our mental health. So no doubt it is effective. It gets us the opportunity to pay bills, but at what cost? A perfect action takes care of the bills, but it does a few more things than that. It gives you peace of mind. It makes you feel inspired, charged, and takes you to self-realization. That's the goal. The issue is, we have to act. And this is what we established in the last class. Why do we have to act, everyone? This is revision. This is nothing new.
Insignia of life. We cannot do without action.
Right. Insignia of life. You stop acting, you start dying. What else?
We don't decay.
Sorry? We don't decay.
We don't decay.
We don't decay. We decay slower. What else?
So you can say now.
Sorry?
To fulfill your vasanas.
To fulfill your vasanas. As long as we have these seeds in our personality called vasanas, all right? So remember this word, vasanas. I put it up on the screen just so that you can imprint it in your mind. It's an important word going forward in the book. Vasana, it is the seed, your inherent nature. As long as you have vasanas, you are compelled, forced to act. Why? Because of the chronology of action. Vasana becomes thought. Thought becomes desire. Desire becomes action. So whether you like it or not, at some point, you will have to express these vasanas. So you are forced, as it were. You are imprisoned. You are bound by your vasanas. Now, where is this and the freedom of that soaring eagle? Or that gazelle going through the fields? Is it possible to act without the force of vasana? Vasana we don't really understand. So let's use words that we do understand. Is it possible to act without the force of desire? Can we act without an agenda? Can we act without motive? Conceive it, okay? It's not in our language at the moment. It's not in our, we only understand, and according to the chronology of action, that we have to have vasana, thought, desire, action. The trouble is, depending on the concentration of the desire in our personality, the more stressed, the more agitated we will be. Remember, a human being minus desires equals God, equals the self, equals your true nature. God plus desires equals a human being. So a perfect action is one which minimizes desire in your action. Okay, so we can't yet conceive of no desire. That's fine. Less desire. Less gross desire, purer desire, perhaps better quality desire? Can we conceive that, everyone? Yes?
Possible.
So let's go for that. Let's start with that. Now, what do I mean by better quality or purer? It is this. Every human being is made up of two components, spirit and matter. The spiritual component is the self, the enlivening factor in us. We have no idea what it is. We're working ourselves towards it. That's the God principle. The other one we're more familiar with, matter. And the material component of us is comprised of three material equipments, which are the body, mind, intellect, BMI. So you've got the body, mind, intellect as the equipments. Now have a look at this. See it on the chart. Where is our attention? This one side of our personality, you see the left side is the material component, body, mind, intellect. That body, mind, intellect makes up your ego. So that makes up Shilpa, Vasu, Girish, Leela. This is the ego. This is your false self. This is your material component self. They change. The body changes, the mind changes, the intellect changes. Your real self, which we are yet to discover, but we're working towards, is the spirit behind that, enlivening that, which stays the same, which is the real you. The right side, the spiritual side, is said to be all bliss paripurna. It is not subject to change, it's unbroken. The left side, the material side, it has ups, it has downs, it's a roller coaster. One day the body is healthy, you're feeling full of vitality. Next day you've got the flu. Up, down, up, down. Mind, feelings, I don't have to tell you about the mind. You can give a lecture to me on the mind. How the mind plays with us. It goes and turns us around in circles. The slightest criticism, we get hurt. The slightest slight insult, perhaps being overlooked, not being promoted, not being acknowledged, we get affected. So the mind has ups and downs, the intellect as well. When our concepts meet with approval, we're happy. Disapproval, we're unhappy. What we want to do is we want to focus less and less on the body, mind, intellect, and more on the spiritual component. The problem is we don't know what the spiritual component is, but it's by default. The less we think about the ego, to that extent, the inner personality, the true self, comes to the surface. Therefore, it is said, what is stopping us from experiencing pleasure or bliss of our true nature is our own ego and those desires related to our ego. Have you heard of this word egocentric? What does it mean? Neela, you have to unmute.
Self-centered?
Sorry, what does it mean?
Self-centered.
Which self? The supreme self within? All blissful self? Which self? What does egocentric mean?
All decisions or actions that are taken by someone are done to feed the ego of the individual.
Which
completely
refers to,
focused on the ego.
which refers to what? Just complete it now that you have the explanation. You're right.
Give an example, you mean?
No. What does the ego mean?
This
Yes, Usha?
Action,
Sorry?
selfish action,
What does selfish mean?
focusing on the BMI,
Focusing on whose BMI?
your own BMI. Sorry.
So we've been specific here.
Sorry.
The ego refers to that individual's body, mind, intellect. So when we say the ego, we're referring to the individual. And when we say egocentric, it is anything centered around that individual's ego, which is that individual's body, mind, intellect. So when you say a person's egocentric, it means that they're only thinking about how can I satisfy my senses, my senses. There's a lot of focus on my and I, me and my. How can you accommodate my feelings? How can you accommodate my concepts, my beliefs? All the focus is on my. This is egocentric. Why? It's feeding the ego. The trouble is, the more prevalent the ego is, the more resistance with the world. The greater the ego, the more fluctuation, affectation, agitation you will experience in life. Some people say that the ego could be used positively. In a negative motivation way, yes. Where you praise somebody, you put somebody up on a pedestal to get them to work. But it's short-lived. It doesn't have a lasting joy. Or you put somebody else down, so indirectly you go up. And that's why we are so fond of gossiping. Because when we gossip, what are we doing? We say, oh, you know, I believe this actor, oh, they're in rehab now. That's a serious thing. That's not a nice thing. I always do it. I could see in their eyes, this is a potential rehab person. But what we're doing there subconsciously is, by putting them down, we're putting ourselves up. If we look at it and we examine it, we'd be horrified. Am I so negative? You don't mean to be, we don't mean to be, we're just egocentric, egoistic. Even, have you noticed, sometimes we neglect our own family members. When I say neglect, we don't see that they've had a tough day, or that they're not feeling so good, or that there's something on their mind. Why don't we see it? No doubt we care for them. Why don't we see it, anyone?
because we are focusing on ourselves.
Yes. Shilpa, what are you saying?
Yeah, because the same thought, because you haven't risen above yourself. You were so clouded by everything that was pleasing you or displeasing you. And you didn't pay attention or didn't care much.
Exactly. So it's not vindictive. It's not that we don't care.
Yeah.
It's just that we are self-absorbed. There's a very small orbit, and we want that orbit to be around ourselves. And we don't mean to be, but that's what it is. And to the extent we are self-absorbed, we don't see even those closest to us. So, what do we want to do? We want to act without ego. This does not mean changing what you do. It does not mean going to a retreat or going to the mountains or a forest or coming to the Vedanta Academy. No, it's not that. All it means is, how do we diminish the ego and egocentric desire in and through our action? That's what will make the difference. Edwin Carpenter. For a long time, we couldn't find what his first name was. So we used to call him E. Carpenter. And Swami would say the E stands for enlightened. But it's an English writer. And he says this: there is no happiness unless you have clean, dropped thinking about yourself. Not the spirit self, the ego. While even, but you must not do it by halves. You say, but can I keep a small bit of ego? That small bit of ego is where the agitation will come. You must not do it by halves. While even there is the least grain of self left, it will spoil it all. You must leave it all behind and vouchsafe the personality and mind that much sympathy as to any stranger, no more, no less. So it is not that you don't take care of your equipments. It's not that you don't take care of your individuality. But why this exaggerated value, this exaggerated opinion, this attachment to your body, mind, intellect that is causing so much of agitation? Drop the attachment, drop the obsession with this ego. Freedom. True freedom. So let's get on to it. What is a perfect action? Enough with the trailer, Sudhakar. Let's get on to today's topic. A perfect action. A perfect action is one where you feel a tailwind, a wind in your sails. You find it easy to perform. Now, all of us already have this platform or this wind, and those are our vasanas. So whilst we don't mean to increase our vasanas and keep into that cycle, at the same time, we should not reject our vasanas or our nature. We've got to use it to lose it. You've got to use your nature to transcend your nature. It's like when you start swimming. Does anyone remember what you used to swim with right in the beginning? I'm not sure in the different countries. We've got different countries here. Did you?
Some support. Yeah, some support.
Some support.
Yeah, you didn't start the very first day. Some floaties, something on your arm.
Apparently, there are different schools of thought about this. Some people are putting 3-month-old babies into the water, and I'm not sure. But I think what you will all agree with is that you've definitely seen people with armbands. You know, these ones where you blow and it inflates, and that's what keeps the child or the new swimmer afloat. The purpose of the armbands is not that you keep using it. You use it to stop using it. A bicycle with training wheels. It's not that you keep the training wheels. You use it to lose it. Similarly with our nature. Use the vasanas that you have. Use it to lose it. So the first part is, how do we use it? Anybody?
Change direction.
Change direction. Okay. Girish?
you approach that action with a selfless result, without results. In the sense, not a selfish thought.
So that's moving on to how do we lose it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first, we've got to start with how do we use it?
I think maybe we need to identify what they are first.
Where is this voice coming from?
Sorry, it's Sangeeta.
Sangeeta, yes. What do we need to do?
We need to maybe identify what our vasanas are.
And yes, and then?
So we are like how you do a SWOT analysis, and then identify what we can use that is for the betterment of something beyond us.
Exactly. But we're missing one part in that. So we identify it through perhaps a SWOT analysis. And you may remember, everyone, some time ago, long time ago, last Sunday, we spoke about Swadharma. Swadharma is the first part of performing a perfect action. Go along with your nature. Swa means one's own. Dharma means nature. Choose a field that's in line with your nature. Align your activity with your nature. You've created it. We don't know how far back, but your past, your thoughts, your desires, your previous thoughts have all created the set of vasanas. Find the field that uses it up best. For what? For perfect action, for evolution. It may not be initially the most lucrative, but ultimately it will be for the betterment of the individual, for evolution. So number one, Swadharma. Number two, and this is where we get to, Girish, is how do we lose it now? So we're performing our nature. Then we get on to why do we do what we do? So we've chosen our field. It could be business or engineering or something creative in the art sphere. If we were to go around the classroom, say, Rishabh, what are you working for? Vasu, why do you do what you do? This is one area where we can reduce the ego in our activity. We can reduce the grossness of desire. And it is this: try and work for something beyond your current circle of identification. So wherever your feelings are at the moment, whatever you think and care about, stretch that circle of identification. In short, be less selfish. Now, we've heard this before, but what is the mechanism behind it? Have a look at this pyramid. When we are selfish, the desires are gross, maximum. As we evolve, when we pitch up nobler, subtler desires, means in the beginning, we're just working for ourselves. We pitched up higher desires. We said, let me work for my family. There's a gentleman in Europe who has told all his nephews and nieces that if any of you want to do the course at the Vedanta Academy, I will take care of the education. So look at that. He stretched beyond his immediate family to all the nephews and nieces in the family and saying, look, here is this value education. I will support it. So it's subtler. So when your desires are selfish, gross in number, gross in quality, the number is more. But as you pitch up higher desires, more unselfish, by the very virtue of it being subtler, the number of desires decrease, the quality increases. We see this in everything in life. When the quality increases, the number becomes fewer, rarer. Why are diamonds precious? Steel, not as much. How rare it is. As it gets subtler, so you go to a higher circle, you keep moving, you keep identifying with something bigger, perhaps your company, your team, your clients, something bigger, the nation, all human beings, the environment. You keep moving, your desires become fewer and fewer. So for instance, if the family is doing well, you may not be so concerned if your personal preferences are not taken care of. So it's, if the family is okay, it's all right. Suppose the family wants to go out for a meal. Because you identify at the family level, whatever most of the family wants to have, you're fine with. But if you're selfish, no. It must be Chinese. It must be Italian. And family conflict going on. Over what? Over dinner. Something that was supposed to bring the family together. Until we keep on increasing, until there's one desire to find the self-realization. So you use higher desires to remove lower desires. Higher desire removes lower desire, keep moving until you have the highest desire. Even in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it talks about this. Similar model. The highest desire for self-realization, self-actualization, figuring out who you are. That desire, if it is strong, all others go by. They disappear, dissolve. Have any of you heard of Leo Tolstoy? He was a Russian landlord, extremely wealthy. And suddenly he was gripped. And he talks about it. It was like, it was a physical grip where he said to himself, I cannot go on another minute of this mundane existence until I find out what it is I am meant to do on this earth. There was no problem. There was no fight with his wife. It's not that she threw him out. There was no financial issues. But he was gripped by this great desire to figure out the purpose, the truth of life. In Sanskrit, we call it Mumuk Shaktva. Mumuk Shaktva. It means desire for liberation. Leo Tolstoy got it as if it was a virus. He got it and he had to go to the end of it. This is it. That one desire for self-realization, all the other desires dissolve. So this is what we're doing in our action. We're pitching up a higher ideal, but you got to be realistic. So we can't go immediately from being very selfish to say, let's improve the environment. You've got to go from where you are and start looking around. So start at home. Do you see the people in your home? What are their aspirations, their inspirations? Not just my family. What about my neighbors? Shilpa proudly has the Mauritius flag. What are my country people? How are they doing? So today at the academy, we had lunch for 400 people. Okay. Our population of students is only 80. And the reason why we had so many people is because Swamiji said that we should invite all the workers and their families, whoever is related to them, with their kids to come and have a special meal, something that they don't have every day. So they have biryani, they have Indian food. So for this meal, we got them burgers and we got them Frankie and cool drinks and ice cream. Just, it's something that we have once in a while, quite regularly, but something they wouldn't have. And no doubt they see it. But what a thing for the children. Why not share with a bigger family if you can? And that's the idea. That's the feeling. Stretch. Why should the family be limited? Okay, you have certain obligations to the people immediately in your vicinity. But why should the feeling be less? And if you have the means, why not share? There's a gentleman who's here at the academy. He used to work in corporate. And he was saying how he would have sometimes restless nights. He wouldn't get good sleep. His action, he wouldn't concentrate properly, but he was producing, no doubt. He was dynamic in his field. And of late, he's changed his field. So he's working for an education initiative to go out into areas where the education isn't as strong, so more rural areas in India. He says sometimes he has to work longer hours. The work that he's putting in and the responsibility that he has is more than the position he had when he was in corporate. But he says, zero stress. He's loving it. So I asked him, what is the difference? He said, when I was in corporate, I was only thinking about me. Now that I'm working even more responsibility, more effort, I'm refreshed by the action. The difference is there is no personal benefit. I'm not working for me. Is it possible to bring that same motivation of working for children, uneducated? Can you bring that into your corporate lifestyle? Can you bring that into whatever your profession is? And the answer is yes. No doubt some fields are more difficult. They tend or lean towards being selfish. Greed, the greed takes over. But not necessarily the case. That's up to you. It's how you use it. And if we can choose a way of making our action unselfish, less about us, more about the work, less about me doing the job and more about the person it's benefiting, the end user, the client, the patient. Where is the focus? This is how we dilute the ego. This is how we dilute the egocentricity of the desire. Remember, there are three types of actions. The first type of action is selfish, full of ego, full of egocentric desire. The second action is unselfish action. Okay, if we can put up the chart. Unselfish action means it's relative, right? Unselfish and selfish is relative. It depends where you are. So if you are at only thinking about yourself, unselfish means the family. If you are at the family level, unselfish means the community, and so on. Selfish action will give you agitation. Why? Because in selfishness, we have an attitude of taking, fulfilling, catering to the body, mind, intellect. It is insatiable. Nobody has found peace like this. The more you take, the more you want. unselfish action, the focus moves from the equipments and the ego to service, to others. And in that, the onus shifts from taking to giving. The psychology of it is, when you give because you feel like you have. You can spare. And when you give, you feel full because you're giving from fullness. This is what brings the peace. If we are finding our actions mundane, boring, not interesting, 1, check if it is our swadharma. 2, check if our motive is selfish. Why are we working? Earnest? Ask yourself, are you earnest about why you are working? Selfish? Unselfish? The difference is, if you are working with selfish motive, you will need an incentive to work. It's Peter. Here's a reward. Here's a bonus. If you work, you'll get this. So you're not interested in the work. You're interested in the reward. If you could get the reward without the work, you most happily take it. But hang on. The reward is not where the joy is. Because once you get it, you'll want something else. So we've got to figure out how to make the work itself enjoyable. That's the challenge. We've accepted that the reward or the fruit of the action is where the pleasure is. Not so. That is an illusion. That is elusive. Why are we so obsessed with success or failure? The pleasure lies in the work. Work is the worship. Work is where the enjoyment is. If you make work enjoyable, the result doesn't matter that much. When I say that much, it means you're not affected by the result. What a life. You're free. You're not bound by the result. Means if there is failure, it's not that you have to end up being dejected because you enjoyed the work anyway. Not that we work for failure, please. But you're not motivated. You're not obsessed by the success. Swamiji says, our motto in life should be to strive, right? So you work hard, put in the effort, to struggle. So there will be obstacles that come our way, not to succeed. To strive, to struggle, not to succeed. What does that mean? The focus is not on the fruit of the action. It doesn't mean to fail. It means don't be so obsessed by the success. Let it be about the work. And this is where we want to move from being incentive-driven to initiative-driven. We're interested in the work. We're interested in the action. Why? Because the action is purifying us. Because the action is something we enjoy. Because we're relating to it from a source of service. Moving away from our ego. An opportunity to give. For those of you who are leaders, for those of you who are parents, what better gift we can give but this education? Of what? Not acting because of threat or incentive, but acting from initiative. That will be sustainable. Otherwise, you have to have stimulants during the day to keep people acting. What? Coffee, tea and coffee through the day. At the end of the day, you need a harder drink. whiskey. You need all sort of recreational activities just to pump the person up. A bonus at the end of the year. All perks and incentives. The trouble is, it's not sustainable because you're given that this year, next year, the employees, the children, whoever's in your team, they want more. And if you don't give that, the work stops. The action stops. But when it's initiative, and you would have found this during COVID, those who stuck and stayed with the company during difficult times, those who had initiative would stay. It's a powerful driving force. If you have a selfish action, you're agitated, you're fatigued, and there's a lack of cooperation, naturally, you're working for yourself. There will be friction with others. If you're unselfish, you'll be energized. You're working from initiative. You're interested in service, something more than yourself. There will be cooperation. You will be less agitated, less on the ego. What about selfless, the third type of action? Selfless action is effortless, is full of longevity. Why? Because there is no fatigue in it. There's no tiring in it. There's peace. What does selfless mean? It means an action without desire. What does a desireless action look like? So here it is. Can anyone say what a desire-filled action looks like? When you have a lot of desire behind an action, how does it express in an action?
With emotions?
With emotions, yes. Great. Anything else?
Results, it's results oriented.
With attachment.
With attachment. Excellent. Think about it and see this chart here. Desire in action comes into the action through three ways. The past, so how it motivates the action, in the present while you're acting, and then in the future. So if we want to reduce desire in an action, we've got to cut it in three ways. The first way is, why are you acting? If you are selfish, you will act with the mind's like and dislike. Oh, I like shopping. I don't like working. I like doing this job. I don't like doing that job. I don't like exercising. So we're going on the mind's like and dislike. So this is increasing the desire. The other way desire creeps into our action is when we keep on thinking about something that's already passed. We reminisce or we regret. We linger on it. But what that is doing is it's increasing the thought flow, increasing the vasana. Cut it. How do you cut it? Act on the intellect's obligations and duties. Not on the mind's like and dislike. You're cutting the desire. The desire is not increasing. So you pitch up a higher ideal and then you act for that goal. Act for that higher ideal, that larger circle, my country, my company, my team. And don't linger in the past. We call it cut chewing. You know, like when a cow eats grass, sometimes it brings it up, it regurgitates it and then re-chews it. Why are you doing that to your memory? Enjoy it, no doubt, but now that it's past, let it be. Enjoy the moment in front of you. Now, how does desire come into the present? We get excited. So excited. Perhaps you've just won something. And when somebody's so excited, they're not intelligible. They make mistakes. It could be the other way around when you're nervous. Suppose you have to give a speech in front of a lot of people. Ladies and it's the opposite of ladies. Something that you're so eloquent when you're in the shower or when you're by yourself. Suddenly when there's a group of people there, what happens? Excited, positive, negative. Just be in the present. And the other way, so there's a desire there. The desire is keeping you, because you want to do a good job. You want to make a good impression. Why? Drop it. Not easy. Easier said than done. And the one more angle, which you saw there, was it comes into the future. So whilst you're acting, you're thinking about the result of the activity. Will I be successful? What happens if I fail? When will I get the fruit? Fruit means you're sowing a seed now. That's the action. The effect of the action is called the fruit of the action. A person who thinks constantly of the future is called result-oriented. The Bhagavad Gita tells us, or the practice of karma yoga is, you've got to cut the past like and dislike. That is how desire is entering the action. Cut the excitement in the present. Do not think about the future, success or failure. Then you are performing the perfect action. What do you mean, don't think about the future? Does that mean we don't plan? Can anyone resolve this? When you say don't think about the future, say, Sudhakar, I've got a university I have to go to next year. I have to plan my next job. I've got to plan how to perhaps emigrate, whatever your projects are. What are we saying here? Yes, Ganesh.
You plan and you think about the future, but you don't have conditions that they're definitely going to come true, or put conditions on success which excite you.
Okay. So you don't put too much expectation on the result so that you're too disappointed. Okay. Is that what you're saying, Ganesh?
Correct.
Okay. Anyone else?
Just work for the sake of work, and you have to plan, but not think about the fruit of the action, whether it is positive or negative. You shouldn't let it bother you. You should just work because you ought to work.
Okay.
Or act to act, need to act.
Paresh?
In fact, Sudhakar, I think that meticulous planning and meticulous execution make this action perfect, which is the subject of our discussion today. But we take out the discoloration, as you said, of the past coming into it or the future expectation. But I think for action to be perfect, it must be planned and executed perfectly.
Okay. Manjiru?
I think it's a beautiful tool to be able to imagine the future, but I think maybe as far as you use it to guide your actions in the present, and then my belief is that the laws of nature will lead you to there. So you don't hold on to the vision, but you use it to guide your present.
Yes. So we're all almost there. It is this. We need to plan. And when you plan, you are thinking about the future. But planning is a present activity. So you decide, I'm going to plan for this year, I'm going to plan for 10 years, I'm going to plan for my life, for my project, okay? I want to plan. Now, plan is an activity. Do the planning. Think about the future. Then having set your targets, your goals, what do you do after that? Just follow the plan. The problem comes is, as we're following the plan, we're thinking about, will I be successful? Will I get in? I'm not sure if I'll get in. What happens if I don't get it? Why are you having those thoughts? They are a waste of energy. They are interfering with your present efficiency, your present potency in the action. Having planned and worked out what you need to do, the only thing we need to do thereafter is just do it. This is a spiritual activity. Being in the present is so powerful, but it needs a highly developed intellect to do that. When we talk about the power of now, being in the present, this is true spirituality, because you're acting at that moment without desire. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse 1, who is a sannyasi? Who is a saint? Not somebody who wears ochre robes or lives in the mountains. It says, a saint is one who does not think about the fruit of the action, just does what they ought to do. If you are a nightingale, sing. If you're a cheetah, run fast. If you are a teacher, teach. If you're an engineer, engineer. Plumber, plumb. Builder, build. Student, study. Just do what you need to do. Whatever your role is, play it, do it, execute it. So actually, when you're planning, that's the present activity. Having made the plan, just follow it. This is how you cut out the future. And as far as the past goes, the past no doubt has valuable lessons. Perhaps we've made mistakes. Treat it like how we do our inbox. Look at the email. Is there any action to be taken? Yes, take the action. Then what? Archive it, close it. Why are you allowing it to linger? Close it, it's dead. It has no other purpose to serve. You've got the lesson from it, extract it, move on. It's remarkable how much time we spend thinking about the past and the future, which really we don't have access to. You have access to the present, and we're wasting it. It doesn't help us. Why does our mind go to the past and the future? Because of desire. If you want to perform a spiritual action, and let's summarize the perfect action, what do we need to do? Use your nature, swadharma. Okay, so have a look at the slide. Use your nature, swadharma. Second, set a higher ideal. Work for something more unselfish. We're not yet at selfless level. Let's do unselfish. Then next, what? Cut the mind coming into the past, from the past, which is your attachments. Don't act on what you like and what you dislike. That'll only increase the desire. Act on your intellect's duty, the plan that you've set to realize your higher ideal. All right, so you're cutting the influence of desire from the past. In the present, that excitement will again depend on your intellect's objectivity. And then lastly, the desire pushes the mind to think about the future. Cut that. No anxiety for the fruit of the action. This is all much easier to be said than to be done. But it all boils down to one thing. Develop the intellect, develop the intellect. So being spiritual is not about renouncing your work, renouncing your duties. It is not renunciation of action. It is renunciation in action. Renunciation means leaving behind. What are you leaving behind? Anybody?
Desires.
Desires. In the form of anxiety for the future result, in the form of like and dislike. This is what you're giving up in the action. That action becomes perfect, effortless, like an eagle soaring. Yes, Girish.
So in that word, what Swamiji had said, like you do what you ought to do, not what you like or not like to do. That's the right action.
Yes, that's one part. So that's the right way to approach the action. Okay, so you're acting from the intellect's duty, not the mind's desire, what it likes, what it dislikes. So that's one part. The other part is the future now. The mind goes to the result. Let us be aware that that is not productive. It is distracting.
When you say you ought to do, then you are not looking at desires. No, that's because when you say you ought to do, whether you like it or you don't like it, there's no question of result of the, you're doing the right thing and it will get you the right desire, right result.
No, you might say that I'm doing what I ought to do as a parent. But then the result orientation comes, but will my child turn out okay? Will they be successful? Will they make the same mistakes I made? So whilst we're doing our duties, we get result oriented in it. So it can still come up. You get the one part right, the second part we still have to work on.
Okay, thank you.
This concludes our study of chapter 5, which was entitled Exigency of Action, means the pressure of action. We have to act because we have vasanas. We have to act because we have to live. But we can use it. We can use this exigency, this action that needs to be performed for evolution. We can use it to perfect ourselves, and by performing that perfect action, or as close to perfect as possible, we can reach the highest. Next class, we start a fascinating chapter entitled Strength of Emotion. How now to use emotion instead of overwhelming us to supporting us. So we look forward to that next week. We don't look forward to it. No thought of the future. We just attend the class.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Sudhakarji, I enjoyed it a lot, Sudhakarji, today. A lot.
Me too.
Sudhakarji, thank you very much.
I also enjoyed it a lot. Very much.
Thank you, Sudhakarji.
So
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good week, everybody.
You
Hariom.
too.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.